Welcome to Simple Wonders, where I help you simplify home education so you can work wonders in your home. I'm Jessica, a homeschooling mama to 4 boys, here to guide you through the first steps of starting your homeschool journey. In this new series, you'll learn how to get started, what you actually need to homeschool, and you'll develop real teaching skills, even if you've never taught a day in your life. I'm so excited. Let's get started. Now, for the summer, I have a special series for you. I'm calling it How to Homeschool, right? Very original. But really, in this series, I want it to be simple. I want to lay out step by step how you can start homeschooling, or maybe you tried homeschooling this year and you have a lot more questions and maybe problems than when you started, and you just kind of want to start with a clean slate for the fall. So I have also gotten a lot of questions from moms who are in my community who want to start homeschooling. They're asking me lots of questions like, which curriculum should I use? How long does your school day go? What happens when your kids are sick? What do you do then? How do I teach multiple ages? I don't want to choose a science curriculum for every single one of my kids, different curriculum for every single one of my kids. How do I do this? So I've collected all of those questions. I've also talked to my mom, who is a veteran homeschooler, as well as other moms, and gotten input from them. What do you wish you knew when you first started homeschooling? And that's what this series is going to be about. We're going to talk about why should you do homeschool or home-based education? What are your options? And what does a typical homeschool day look like? Setting some realistic expectations. And the logistics, like what would a daily schedule or rhythm look like? What is housekeeping and laundry going to look like with all of these things that you're trying to juggle? What would a weekly schedule look like? How are you going to fit in all of these different subjects for all the different ages throughout the week? And then what is family gather or content-based subjects? What are the individual subjects? How do you teach those? As well as, how do I teach? I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching degree. I've never taught before. How am I going to teach my own children? And so I'm going to go over all of those things in this series. I'm so excited to start this with you. I've been preparing for so long to get it just right and only include the most important things that you are going to need to simplify home education, yet have a successful school year. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Why am I making these videos? What experience do I have homeschooling? Well, I was homeschooled myself for all 12 years. In high school, I had a few classes at the local high school, but otherwise I did most of my schoolwork at home. Then I graduated from high school. I went on to Brigham Young University, where I studied human development and family studies and how those connect. I also knew I wanted to homeschool my own kids, so I took some early elementary education classes there as well, which I loved. Then my husband and I, we got married in college. After we graduated, we started our family. I have 4 boys now. My oldest is 11. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. So we have been homeschooling since the beginning, and my oldest was in 1st grade when COVID hit and everything was shut down. So even if I didn't want to homeschool, it wasn't an option at that point. But we did homeschool and we loved it. Now, I learned a lot when I was homeschooling my boys. So I learned a lot and I had to go back to the drawing board a lot. But overall, I feel like by this point, 6 years in, I have a really good handle on how to homeschool and what that looks like. So what are the benefits of homeschooling or home-based education? Now, I'm going to just let you know now, there's a few different terms for untraditional education today. There's homeschooling, which is completely independent of anything. You are the financial backer for your homeschool. You are making the curriculum or buying a curriculum. You're choosing the curriculum. You are doing pretty much everything yourself, maybe outsourcing some things, but finding someone to help tutor math or finding a local sewing class, but you are doing everything. There are other options. There are hybrid schools where maybe it's just 2 or 3 days a week and you do most of your work and homework at home, but you come together 2 or 3 days a week to discuss and have a teacher lead a discussion, do experiments. Those are called hybrid or micro schools. There are charter schools, which are public charter schools, and then there are private schools, there's public schools, and then there are online charter schools, online public charter schools. Now, you are considered a public school student if you're enrolled in these, but you never step in a public school building. You are at home, and most of them allow you to choose the curriculum you want to use. They will give you financial stipends or scholarships, funding to purchase materials that you need to homeschool. And in this case, your child would have a homeroom teacher who lives somewhere in the state, and they just check in on you. You usually have assignments that you need to turn in, just showing that you've done work. So once a week, hey, here's a picture of my child's math. Here's a picture of the science experiment we did, or a video. And then they do state testing at the end of the year. So that is an online public charter school. It is not considered homeschooling, but you could call it home-based education or a home education, because you are at home doing your education, not in a brick and mortar building. That is just something to be aware of when you are looking online at Facebook groups or Instagram. Any of those social media groups are very concerned that you use the correct terminology. So just be aware of that. If you choose an online public charter school, you are choosing the curriculum, you are doing the teaching. Your child never goes into a school, but if they are enrolled in an online public school, they are not considered a homeschool student. And people do not like it when you refer to them as thus. So those are some options if you feel like financially you cannot do homeschooling as far as purchasing all the materials and curriculum. If you want a little bit more hand-holding support, having a homeroom teacher that can help tutor your child, tutor you, this is a great option. Now, those are just some of the options, but why would you want to do homeschool or a home-based education? Well, one reason is that your children have a personalized education. You don't have to go the same pace as everyone in the class. The classroom has a schedule, and they are moving at that schedule whether or not your child understands the material. And if your child does understand the material and is getting bored, unless your school has gifted classes or accelerated learning classes, they need to stay with their class and be in that same lesson or part of the textbook, whether or not they understand it. So that is one nice thing with homeschool. You can move at their own pace. For example, one of my boys in the 2nd grade, he was having a very difficult time with multiplication. And as much as I would work with him, he could not remember his multiplication facts, which is really important for him to multiply bigger numbers. To be able to divide and do long division, he needs to have those quick in his memory so that he can just pull it up and he can move through. So it was something that I knew was important. We kept working with them and doing all kinds of things. We used manipulatives. We had him fill out a whole table. We had him do it over and over again, and it just wasn't clicking. It took him 9 months just to learn, I believe it was 2 through 6, just to learn those. And it finally did click. Now, we took a break. It was getting frustrating for him. So I said, we're just going to take a step back and we're going to go to what we were learning before multiplication. We did a lot of that. And then in 3rd grade, beginning of 3rd grade, we started multiplication again, and it was easy. He picked it right up, and it wasn't a frustration for him anymore. That would not have been possible in public school. He would not have been able to just take a break and wait for his mind to develop and catch up to where the prescribed grade level would be. So you have that personalized education aspect. Then you have more time to play. Children need a lot of time to play. In her book, Barefoot and Balanced, Angela Hanscom, a physical therapist or occupational therapist, she said that children need 3 to 5 hours of unstructured play outside every day. This is a lot of time, but this is from an occupational therapist who has seen children come in for issues with balance and just daily life things because they don't get enough playtime. Children also gain their imagination. They also are less stressed when they have time to play. Now, in one of my interviews with Peter Gray, he said that the suicide and depression and anxiety rates are so high during the school year and then plummet during the summer. Suicide rates go way down during the summer. Now, that's just something, just absorb that for a minute. We are putting our children in an environment that's so stressful for certain children that they don't even want to live anymore. So for some kids, just being out of that environment, being able to play outside and de-stress is really important, not for only for their emotional, psychological health, but also for their mental health, more creativity, better imagination. When you homeschool, you have more flexibility. So I have a friend who is choosing to homeschool this year because her family wants to travel. They have opportunity to travel to Europe more often because her parents are there. And when she was trying to do that during the school year, she just took her boys who are in elementary school out and traveled in Europe. They learned a lot. They went to museums. They experienced the culture. They read books. But the school sat her down and said, you can't do this. You missed too many days last year, so you have to promise that you can miss no more than 2 days for the next school year. You have to send your kids even if they're sick. You can't miss more than 2 days. And she said, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to send my kids when they're sick. We are going to spend time traveling and living life and learning outside of the classroom. So she is going to homeschool this year. So when you homeschool, you have more flexibility. You aren't tied to even the school days of have to be here to pick up kids at 3 or 3:30 or whenever pickup time is. You don't have to be here Monday through Friday. You can make it more flexible to fit your family's needs and your lifestyle. And there's also the possibility of a higher quality education. I believe that children get a higher quality education. As my husband said, there's just nothing that can compete with one-on-one tutoring every day. And that's really what it comes down to. And with the resources that we have available to us now, the libraries, the internet, we can give our children such a high quality education. We ourselves, most of us, have a college education, and to feel that we cannot teach our children how to read or do basic math, or to help them find the resources they need to on the internet, or at a library is just silly. You can give your child an excellent education, and in some cases even better than if they were at public school, because you have more time in the day to delve into subjects, go deeper, learn more. And as an example of that, I've heard from local high school students here at our public high school. I've also read lots of teachers on Reddit talking about how they don't read full books in high school anymore. They read excerpts from books, or they read a graphic novel version because a lot of kids can't read a book cover to cover. And so you really may be able to give your child a higher quality education at home. Even just being able to read classic books from cover to cover is one of those things that you think would just be a given, but is something that many students aren't getting in public school today. Not to mention that especially after COVID, there are so many kids who are almost illiterate in middle school and high school, and teachers have to spend time just helping them with basic things they should have learned in elementary school instead of moving on to the advanced topics that they should be learning in those grades. So those are just a few of the reasons. I have a much longer podcast episode about home-based education and why it is a great option for many families. If you want to read or listen to that, it will be in the description box below. So you're probably thinking, oh, this sounds great. I already know all this. This is why I want to homeschool. I want to hear what the challenges are. Not very many moms talk about the challenges. I think it's just kind of maybe a taboo thing. Like if I talk about the challenges, then it may make people not want to homeschool, or it may make it so people think homeschooling is not a good option. There are challenges and pros and cons to every choice we make. We as moms just have to decide which things are most important to us and which challenges we're willing to tackle and which things that we are not willing to tackle. So let's talk about some of the challenges of homeschooling. So the most obvious one is that you are going to have less me time. Now it's not going to be as little as you think it is, because when you take out the busy mornings, we're trying to get everyone ready, get their lunches ready, get them dropped off to school or at the school bus. You are going to have a lot more time in the morning. And children, I have found, as they get older, sleep in. I have more time in the morning to exercise, to read books, or to just relax for a little bit, go on a walk. Now, as a mom, you have really three main things you're juggling. You're juggling housework, you're juggling making food, and now teaching your kids. I have just found that most of the time I'm only keeping up two of those, and one of them usually falls. Sometimes school is just not going to happen. We're sick or have a new baby or we're potty training. And so I'm just keeping the house clean and getting food on the table, and the kids are responsible for their own learning for that day. I have a lot of books in my library, and so they can go pick something. They love to do Khan Academy. It's like a game for them. It really isn't a game, but they love it. So I'm like, okay, you guys can go do some Khan Academy for 10-15 minutes. Okay, go read a book. And so we just have a bare minimum. Now, that's the ball I dropped for the day. Sometimes we did all the school, we did the science experiments, we read all the books, and it was a great learning day. And now the house is a complete mess, and I don't have any leftovers in the fridge. And so I spend time making dinner, and we go to sleep, and the house is a mess, and the sink is full of dirty dishes. And we wake up, and we do the dishes and clean the house, and we start school later. You're just picking which of those things you can do each day. You're not going to get everything done. Now, another thing is that your house is going to be messy. Learning is messy. That's one thing I've learned from reading books about inventors and scientists, reading biographies about them, and then also just living in the chaos myself. Learning is messy. You're making mistakes, you're experimenting. And when we prevent our children from making a mess, we are preventing them from essentially learning. We can still read books and learn, but really the hands-on experimenting and having fun and seeing what will this do, that's where that real learning happens, and it makes your house kind of messy. And I teach my kids to clean up when they're done, and I try to help them whenever I can. But just when you're living and learning in a house, it will be cluttered. We do a deep clean every Saturday, just, washing windows, dusting, mopping the floor. But that's once a week. The rest of the week, our house is just messy. Something you just have to get used to. And another thing that is difficult is separating your learning or your school space from your home space. When kids are at school, they have their school space. This is where they learn. There's not that temptation to play with that toy that's on the ground. There's not that temptation to go and get a snack or get water or go to the bathroom. So you have to have some parameters, or at least try to set some parameters for some kids that might be more distractible than others. I have a son with ADHD, and it has helped to have him come up to my bedroom and sit in the comfy chair. He reads a book. There's no toys up here. There's none of his fun graphic novels that he likes to read. Nothing to distract him, no brothers, and he works really well up here in my bedroom. Now, for other kids, this isn't a problem. My oldest, he can sit and read pretty much anywhere as long as there's not crazy loud screaming or laughing or running around. He's pretty good at just sitting there and reading and not being distracted. So just think about that when you begin homeschooling. How can you maybe set up a space we are learning here, or maybe some parameters of, okay, everyone, before we start school, everyone go to the bathroom, get a drink, and we will not be eating until lunchtime. We will take another break after this subject. And last but not least, I think the hardest thing for me with teaching at home is balancing being a parent and being a teacher. And I wish there was a perfect solution. The only thing that I found is to just sense, with each child, they're so different, and just sensing when they need more love. And I like to think of it as a love bank. You're withdrawing a lot when you're asking them to do school and to do math and to do things that are hard for them or that they just don't want to do right now. They want to go play. And so you're withdrawing, but you need to make deposits in that love bank or that account. You need to spend maybe some more time in the evenings with them, or on the weekends. My boys like it when I come and lay down or cuddle with them on the couch, scratch their back, They love it when I squeeze their arms. I know that sounds weird, but it's very relaxing for their nervous system. Or to just read a book with them, to play a board game with them. They love those things. And so making deposits in that bank is going to help when you have to make withdrawals and you are going to be asking them to do things or making demands on them. So those are the hardest things that I have found with homeschooling. And that is the end of this video. Now, I have some homework for you. Each of these videos will come out once a week, and I'll have an assignment for you to kind of help you get started in your homeschooling journey. First, you need to figure out what the laws are in your state with homeschooling. You can easily find this online, just homeschooling laws in whatever state you're in. So you could type in letter of intent. A lot of states only require you to send a letter of intent. Some require that you do state testing if you're homeschooling. Some even require a portfolio. My state that I'm in doesn't require anything. If you homeschool, that's your business. You don't need to let the school or the state know that you are choosing to homeschool. So look up the homeschooling laws, what you need to do in your state. The next thing I want you to do is write down your reason for homeschooling. Don't word it as if it's something that you are afraid of. I'm afraid my children are going to give up our religious values, or I fear that my children are not going to get a good education. Write down what you love. I love teaching my children about my religion. I love Jesus Christ, and I want to teach my child more about him and how to be like him. Or I love traveling. I want to travel with my children more. I love learning. I love reading. I want to instill that love of learning or reading to my children. Write down what you love or what you're excited about and not what you fear, because love is going to get you through the tough times, not the fear. And then the next thing that I want you to do this week is to find some community. Look on your local Facebook page. You could type in your county and homeschoolers or the city homeschoolers and find a Facebook group. Maybe you can find attend some homeschool classes at a local park, a local library, and meet some kids there. Find your community. Another place that is a really good a way to meet homeschoolers is Wild and Free. You just go to the Wild and Free website or Wild and Free groups and find a group near you and start going. There's one way to start meeting other homeschooling families. So I want you to do those 3 things this week, and then tune in next week for the next video where I am going to be talking about realistic expectations with homeschooling. What's it really going to look like on the day-to-day? And if you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out.